The United States is drowning, not in water, but in debt, $36 trillion and counting. It's a number so large it's almost meaningless, and it's forcing some radical ideas onto the table. Recently, Anton Kobyakov, a senior advisor to President Vladimir Putin, claimed that the United States is trying to offload its $35 trillion national debt using cryptocurrencies and gold, speaking at the Eastern Economic Forum. He said, "The US is now trying to rewrite the rules of the gold and cryptocurrency markets. Remember the size of their debt, $35 trillion. Meanwhile, Senator Cynthia Lummis has argued that Bitcoin is the only solution to America's $36 trillion debt, and President Trump has taken steps in that direction with signing an executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a digital asset stockpile. So, is the US really trying to replace the dollar with digital currency? Or is this just a hedge against mounting debt? And this isn't the first time. Whenever the dollar's position was threatened, the US made extraordinary moves, reshaping global finance to protect its lead. To understand what might happen next, we need to look back at how America has acted in the past. Historical context and the dollar's rise. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, the government intervened in ways that were unprecedented, stabilizing banks, devaluing the dollar, and expanding federal spending to keep the economy afloat. After World War II, the Bretton Woods system of 1944 tied other major currencies to the US dollar, and the dollar itself to gold. This move cemented the dollar's position as the world's dominant reserve currency. Then, in the 1970s, President Nixon ended the dollar's final link to gold, shifting the US to a fiat currency system. This was a major shock. It broke the trust many countries had placed in the dollar and fundamentally changed the rules of global finance, giving the US unprecedented freedom to manage its currency and debt. This made more US dollars circulating outside the country than inside, created what economists call exorbitant privilege. The US could issue debt and run deficits without immediate collapse. Domestically, this led to finance becoming more profitable than industry, widening inequality, rising asset bubbles, cycles of debt dependency, and even homelessness. It also created a cycle of dependency with China. Let's break it down. Step 1. The US is the world's biggest customer. It goes to China, the world's biggest factory, and buys massive amounts of goods, everything from phones to furniture. Step 2. The US pays with dollars. China ends up holding trillions of these dollars. Step 3. Instead of letting that cash sit idle, China invests it somewhere safe. The safest bet? Buying US Treasury bonds, essentially lending money back to the US government. Step 4. This cheap credit allows the US to keep spending, keep buying, and keep its economy running hot. The result? The US wins by getting both cheap goods and cheap credit to fuel its economy. China wins because the constant demand from the US fuels its massive manufacturing boom and employment. But this cycle came with a cost. Every round of borrowing stacked more debt on Washington's shoulders, creating a system that looked stable until the numbers grew too big to ignore. Debt pressure mounts. Washington's digital gamble. Rising debt has forced repeated shutdown threats, deepened Chinese dependency, and triggered unprecedented national security concerns. It has led to a rise in US debt from $18.15 trillion just 10 years ago to more than $37 trillion in 2025. Donald Trump has promised to stop the spiral, while Elon Musk has blasted Congress for passing what he called big, beautiful spending bills. The next warning is clear. Washington may look to other alternatives as a way out of endless borrowing. Crypto is one option. Senator Cynthia Lummis has argued that Bitcoin is the only solution to America's debt crisis. Her Bitcoin Act proposes that the US acquire 1 million BTC over 5 years and hold it for 2 decades. Supporters call this a hedge against the dollar, but critics warn it could backfire, driving even more demand for US treasuries, and by extension, even more debt. And it's not just cryptocurrencies. The idea of a government-backed central bank digital currency, or CBDC, has also been floating in US policy circles for years. So what exactly is a CBDC? CBDCs sound similar to crypto because both can run on distributed ledger technology, but the key difference is control. A CBDC would be managed entirely by the Federal Reserve on a permissioned system, while cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin run on decentralized public blockchains. In the US, no CBDC exists yet. The Biden administration studied the idea, arguing it could deliver faster payments and efficiency, but Donald Trump rejected the concept, calling CBDCs a threat to freedom. He directed federal agencies to halt any such initiatives, both within the US and under US influence abroad. Instead of allowing a government-controlled digital dollar, Trump moved to promote decentralized alternatives. In March 2025, he signed an executive order creating both a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a digital asset stockpile, measures aimed at protecting value, preparing for global financial risks, and blocking any move toward a surveillance-style CBDC. But the question is, has Washington truly abandoned CBDCs and cryptocurrencies? Especially with Trump's volatile decision-making, nothing is guaranteed. This is exactly what Russian advisor Anton Kobyakov warned about. The US is now trying to rewrite the rules of the gold and cryptocurrency markets. Remember the size of their debt, $35 trillion. These two sectors are essentially alternatives to the traditional global currency system. As in the 1930s and the 1970s, the US plans to solve its financial problems at the world's expense, this time by pushing everyone into the crypto cloud. Over time, once part of the US national debt is placed into stablecoins, Washington will devalue that debt. So the question stands, will Trump actually take this path, solving America's $35 trillion debt at the expense of the rest of the world? For now, we wait. If the US fails to act responsibly, it risks sinking deeper into debt, while rivals like China, Russia, and even the EU prepare to seize the ground the US might lose. Alternative paths and global context. To achieve global dominance in currency, the European Union tried to position the euro as a challenger. At its peak, it held around 10% of global reserves, but it never came close to replacing the dollar. The BRICS nations have floated the idea of a shared currency, but internal trust issues between members, like India and China, make it difficult to scale. Meanwhile, inside the US, financial capital has concentrated in fewer hands. The system increasingly rewards money making money, while inequality and homelessness rise. It's a side effect of capital market dominance, rather than broad-based industrial growth. So what are the potential future outcomes? One path is a hybrid world, where the dollar stays dominant in some regions, but digital settlement systems slowly reduce its monopoly. Another is a mixed basket of currencies, with Bitcoin, stablecoins, and regional fiat blocks all playing a role. In other words, the global financial order might not flip overnight to a single new king of currencies. Instead, we could be heading toward a fragmented system, one where the dollar is still powerful, but no longer unchallenged. This report was Axis and Balance. If you found it useful, like and subscribe.